Welcome to K-Drama Echoes, a space where stories continue long after the final scene fades, where silence becomes a language, and where the truth often lives between what is said and what is withheld. In recent GL history, few stories have lingered as painfully and persistently as the story of Faye Pariah Malasorn and Yoko Apazra Lertprazert, a pairing that arrived quietly, flourished unexpectedly, and disappeared without explanation. From the beginning, Faye and Yoko felt different. Their connection in blank, the series was not built on exaggerated romance or dramatic spectacle. It was grounded in stillness. In moments where other dramas would rush forward, theirs paused. A look would last just a second longer than necessary. A breath would be held. A line would be delivered with restraint rather than emphasis. That subtlety invited viewers not to consume the story, but to participate in it. Audiences leaned in. What fans responded to was not just chemistry but authenticity. It felt unmanufactured. Their bond didn't scream to be noticed. It waited to be understood. And in an industry where pairings are often carefully engineered for virality, Fyoko felt like something that slipped through the cracks of strategy and became real simply because it was honest. As blank the series gained momentum, so did the emotional investment of its viewers. Fan communities formed not out of obligation, but out of recognition. People saw themselves in the quiet longing, in the unspoken tension, in the vulnerability both actresses brought to their roles. Edits weren't just romantic, they were reverent. Discussions weren't shallow, they were analytical, almost protective. And through it all, Fay and Yoko never oversold the bond. Their interviews were calm. Their interactions were gentle. They never leaned heavily into fan service, never exaggerated intimacy for applause. That restraint only deepened the belief that what they shared, whether strictly professional or something more, was meaningful enough not to be exploited. Then the story ended on screen. And something else ended off screen too. The disappearance of Faye Yoko from public view was not immediate, but it was unmistakable. First fewer joint appearances, then none, then silence. In an industry that usually capitalizes aggressively on popular pairings, the absence felt unnatural. Fans waited for clarification, for a transition, for reassurance that this was a pause rather than a full stop. None came. Behind the scenes, reports of contract changes began to circulate. Faye's departure from her agency contrasted sharply with Yoko's continued presence under studio management. For fans, this detail reframed the entire narrative. What once seemed like a personal choice now appeared to be a professional boundary, one drawn not by emotion, but by corporate structure. This is where the story becomes larger than Faye and Yoko. The GL industry, much like other entertainment spaces, thrives on chemistry but often struggles with what to do when that chemistry grows beyond its control. Pairings are promoted, monetized, and celebrated, but only within limits. When boundaries blur, when audiences believe too deeply, or when actors gain too much autonomy, systems tend to pull back. Fans recognized this pattern, and they resisted it. Campaigns emerged demanding transparency. Support turned into advocacy, not for romantic confirmation but for respect, for the right of performers to move freely, to collaborate without restriction, and to exist beyond branding strategies. Fyoko became a symbol not just of a lost pairing, but of a larger tension between authenticity and control. Still, both actresses remained quiet. Until Faye spoke. Her words did not arrive with drama or defiance. They arrived softly, almost cautiously. She spoke about love not as gossip, but as something lived. She spoke about expectations, not imposed by fans but felt internally. And then came the sentence that reframed everything. Our Valentine never came. It was not angry. It was not bitter. It was reflective. For many fans, that line felt like a goodbye they hadn't been prepared to receive. It acknowledged that something meaningful existed, while also accepting that it would not be fulfilled publicly, perhaps not at all. It suggested timing that failed, opportunity that passed, and emotions that had no place to land. What gave the moment its weight was Faye's composure. She did not dramatize her feelings. She did not seek sympathy. She simply stated a truth and allowed it to stand on its own. In doing so, she humanized a story that had often been reduced to speculation. Yoko's continued silence, meanwhile, became heavier with time. In fandom spaces, silence is rarely empty. It is interpreted, reinterpreted, and analyzed. Some saw Yoko's quiet as evidence of restriction, contractual or professional. Others saw it as dignity, a refusal to feed narratives she did not control. In either case, her absence from the conversation only deepened the sense that this story was shaped by forces larger than personal will. Today, the distance between Faye and Yoko is no longer just physical or professional. It is symbolic. They represent two paths that diverged not because of lack of feeling, but because of circumstance. One moves forward independently, her words offering closure without explanation. The other continues within a system that values silence as stability. And yet, the story refuses to disappear. New viewers continue to discover the series and feel the same quiet pull. They reach the final episodes and sense something unresolved. They search for answers and encounter fragments, interviews, edits, quotes, that single devastating sentence. In doing so, they join a cycle of discovery and heartbreak that has repeated itself for months. This is the legacy of Fyoko. Not a scandal, not a confirmed romance, but a feeling that was real enough to leave a mark. Our Valentine never came has become more than a quote. It is now a shorthand for all the stories that exist briefly, shine brightly, and are then constrained by reality. It speaks to love that does not get a celebration, connection that does not get permission, and endings that arrive without resolution. Whether Faye and Yoko ever reunite professionally is unknown. Whether time will soften the silence is uncertain. But what they created together, intentionally or not, cannot be undone. Some stories end cleanly. Some stories end loudly. And some stories end quietly, leaving echoes instead of answers. Fyoko was never meant to be loud. It was meant to be felt. In the end, perhaps the most painful part of the Fyoko story is not what was taken away, but what was never allowed to arrive. Not a confirmation, not a denial, not even a proper goodbye. Just the quiet understanding that some connections exist only for a moment, yet stay forever. For fans, Fyoko became a reminder that chemistry cannot be manufactured, but it can be limited, redirected, or quietly erased by decisions made far from the screen. And still the echo remains. In the way fans remember their eyes meeting. In the way silence now carries more meaning than dialogue ever did. In the single sentence that turned hope into memory. Our Valentine never came is no longer about a date on a calendar. It is about love paused, stories interrupted, and a bond that mattered even without an ending. Some stories don't need closure to be real. They only need to be remembered.